we saw some pretty good rookie seasons from some pretty good players in 2025. But this week, we're going to talk about who's going to surge and who's going to slump. Sophomore slumps, sophomore surges. Producer, hit that button. Welcome to another edition of Fantasy Forecast with Grindberg and bigz. He is bigz. I am bigz. He is Grindberg. This is your home for awkward cold opens. I'm not saying something bad happened to Schultze, but he's not here, and I don't know. He could be buried in a shallow grave somewhere. We won't think about that. He's Grindberg. I am bigz. We're here to talk about sophomore players in redraft fantasy for 2026, who we think is going to come out of it after a big sophomore slump, who we think after having a good year, or after a freshman slump, who we think my brain today. You get it. We're going to talk about some potential guys to either increase their performance over last year or decrease their performance over last year. How are you, Mike?
Well, I'm here to put the things back onto track here. I'm getting our train back onto the weaving ways of fantasy football. But yeah, bigz, you mentioned it. This is kind of our year 2 breakout show where we talk about guys that potentially might be breaking out or you know, there's talk of them breaking out. So we want to maybe put some red flags up on maybe a couple guys here, maybe not. But we're talking about year 2 guys, and let's get it started, bigz. Let's talk about, you know, maybe a quarterback here that I know that you and I have been talking about for quite some time here. We've been high on him for a while. I'm interested to see what your take is here on one Tyler Shough and whether you think he is going to be one surge in year 2 or he's going to be a slump. Talk to me about Tyler Shough.
Well, we look at some of the numbers and we see a 67.6 completion percentage. He had 10 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. That's not a great touchdown to interception ratio. He wound up starting 11 games and somehow beat out Jackson Dart for Offensive Rookie of the Year, which Jackson Dart had a much, much better year in fantasy. Tyler Shough finished as QB 26. I think just simply based on the fact that he's going to be playing 16 or 17 games, he's going to improve on his quarterback ranking where he stands in that QB 26 role. I think he's going to improve on that, but I think his fantasy relevance is, especially in single quarterback leagues, is going to knock him down into maybe a streamer status. I don't think he's going to be draftable. So yeah, I think we're looking for a Tyler Shough slump.
Wow, I was really not expecting that from you, bigz. I mean, you know, they added a weapon in Etienne, so I think they've upgraded their run game a little bit here. Obviously, you have some question marks about whether he can make that step forward. Obviously, in year 2, maybe we've seen his heights here. Like, what's your take on them next year? Then, like, is this just like a guy that's going to be a Band-Aid now? I mean, you've been pretty high on him.
Yeah, I've liked him, and last year he had some games where it was like he had a good matchup late in the season and did okay. But I think as somebody that you're going to go into the draft room and come out with as somebody you think is going to be reliable, I don't think we're going to see a huge enough leap from him to be able to do that. Yes, they added Etienne, and Etienne is good in the receiving game. They also have Alvin Kamara, but the Saints are a team that has been in cap hell for a while, and they've had really, really poor offensive line play. Unless they make some huge improvements to that offensive line and give Tyler Shough a better environment from which to throw, I think he's just not going to be relevant.
Yeah, I mean, especially in one quarterback leagues, obviously here in super flex leagues, he could probably be a spot start here and there. I think I like this year for Olave, especially as a really nice complete season if he can stay healthy. But yeah, I think you might be onto something here, Biggs. And yeah, I'm going to be a little bit more cautious with my Shough shares moving forward. But obviously in redraft, not so much it should be on your radar here as a guy you should be starting anywhere near your platform here. Like the
And
call.
and as a counterpoint, Schultze had Cam Ward on his list, and I'm pretty sure he was going to talk about Cam Ward having a surge year.
Mm-hmm.
So look for a big jump from Cam Ward, a bigger jump from Cam Ward than from Tyler Shough.
There you have it. All right. Well, I'm going to talk about a guy here, and he's, clearly a surge for me. Dynasty managers, redraft managers really hit the jackpot last year at the end of the season here. Half the league is still drooling over this new tight end, but, I'm looking at Colston Loveland as a guy that, we were pretty high on last year. We called the breakout after that injury to Komet. I think it was you on one of the forecast shows. You had him on your waiver wire, and he did you proud after that episode, hey Biggs, because he really came on near the end of the season. He wasn't a starter to start the year, but boy, did he ever finish that. And that chemistry with Caleb Williams, especially down the stretch, it looked like, legitimate, like a focal point of that offense that got rolling. And we got to think of that Ben Johnson calling plays now. I like the 2 draft picks from last year, and he clearly was working them into the lineup in the latter half of the season. So this is the environment that I think he's going to explode in fantasy. More snaps, more trust. Obviously, people are onto him, so his value already is going to be peaking at this stage. So I wouldn't pay up to get Colston Loveland because I think there's still some question marks about Caleb Williams in his year 3, but a guy that I know is clearly on the surge path, and I think he warrants that tight end 4 ranking in my book, especially headed into this next year. And he's shown promise, right? And PFF awarded him the highest overall rookie grade in the entire NFL at 85. He, despite that modest target share and only 11 starts, he still led. He still had about 713 receiving yards. Week 8 onward, he was a top 10 tight end, and we saw the metrics heading in the last year, and we both liked Loveland, and I think we both had him over Warren, if I'm not mistaken, headed into last year. Biggs, were you a big Loveland guy, if I remember right, as well?
Yes.
So, this is this is his year. I think this is a progression. DJ Moore is no longer there, and I think Ben Johnson year 2 is really going to put the wheels up for that offense. So, give me some Colston Loveland, but be careful on the price tag.
Yeah, and what I see is kind of an opposite dynamic from what happened with Brock Bowers, where Brock Bowers came out of the gate guns a-blazing and then kind of took a step back with an injury last year and bad quarterback play, etc. Colston Loveland only started 11 games last year. This coming year, he's going to start the whole season most likely, and you're just going to see his numbers absolutely explode. So, he's on the surge path.
Yeah, I mean, we both had him, like you mentioned, as our tight end 1 last year, and that might flip throughout their careers with him and Warren. And that was all because of our rookie guide that we really dug deep into these profiles, and we did it again this year. So for those of you who haven't gotten your copy of the FSAN Rookie Prospect Guide, you should get on it. And
We've all been there, watching a can't-miss rookie bust while your rival scoops up the next superstar on waivers. The 2026 class is deep, talented, and full of landmines. Do you know who's actually worth the 101? Stop guessing, start scouting. The Fantasy Sports Advice Network 2026 Rookie Prospect Guide is your blueprint for a dynasty. The experts from the Fantasy Forecast, the Devi Dojo, the Dynasty Pulse have logged the hours so you don't have to. From advanced analytical models to raw film grading, we give you the data that translates to Sunday points. Don't just participate in your draft, dominate it. Download the 2026 guide at FSAN.com today. Your championship starts here. Now, before we get into the wide receivers, I just want to know, are you proud of me for not having another excuse to talk about Jackson Dart and how he finishes quarterback 14 and how he's going to have a huge surge year this year because Malik Neighbors is coming back?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really proud of you for doing that. I mean, I'm a little bit worried with Matt Nagy in that offense, but maybe with if Todd Monken would have followed him there, I'd have been a little bit more optimistic. So I am cautiously optimistic about Jackson Dart year two, but Matt Nagy definitely is something that really puts a shadow, a doubt in my eyes. Still puts Dart on the map, but I think it caps his upside here a little bit, Biggs. What do you think other than that, the Nagy hire that you brought up your boy Jackson Dart?
It scares me. But also, I didn't shoehorn in Jackson Dart to our promo for the rookie guide because if you had bought the rookie guide last year, you would have seen that I had Jackson Dart as the QB1, and then you would have had him too.
Exactly, because we are on it, and we're going to continue to bring you those facts, folks. So let's talk about the running backs here, Biggs. And I want to hear you talk about your boy. I've drafted a lot of him in some dynasty startups the last couple of weeks here, so I want to hear your take on him because I'm very hopeful for one. Ashton Jeanty for year two breakout here. Is he going to slump or is he going to sophomore surge here, Biggs? What's your take?
Ashton Jeanty is going to have a sophomore surge. Yesterday, the Raiders announced that they had signed Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is, if he starts the season, plays the first 2 or 3 games, ostensibly the Raiders are going to be drafting Fernando Mendoza with the first pick of the draft. You're going to have a veteran presence at quarterback who came off a really terrible, the worst year of his career. I personally am not a fan of the signing, but if it opens the door for Fernando Mendoza, Mendoza and Jeanty are going to be a good pair. The Raiders went out and they signed Tyler Linderbaum in free agency. He's a huge running game center.
Love it.
For when he was playing at Baltimore. Improvements to the offensive line, improvements to the way that Clint Kubiak runs his offense versus what Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly put together last year. Jeanty had a fairly good year, 975 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns. I see spikes coming from both of those. And then in the receiving game, he had 346 yards on 73 targets. If he catches 10 more balls next year, he's going to continue to add. We already saw that he was among the leaders in missed tackles forced last year. That's a very sticky stat. He has always made people miss. You give him more room to run because he was either last or second to last in yards before contact, meaning he was getting hit in the backfield before he even had a chance to get going. Little improvements like those, I think Jeanty could have a huge year and really in dynasty leagues set people up for cashing in on their 101 pick from last year's rookies. And this year, I think he should be a first-round pick in redraft.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Biggs, and I'm going to have a lot of Ashton Jeanty shares because I'm going to let Gibbs and Bijan slide to me because I'll try to trade back if I can, and especially in the first round here, I think he's a value for sure. And love to see I love to see your guy, and I think your Raiders are doing some right things here, and I'm optimistic about them. So I'm not going to bite my tongue, Biggs, but I'm going to let you hopefully be a little bit optimistic about them because I think they have some.
Kirk Cousins, come on.
I just think that's some tutelage for one Fernando Mendoza. I think they're going to be the cleanest quarterback duo in history. They're going to be folding laundry in the back. They're going to be helping their teammates stay prim and proper, and things are going to go really well for them, I hope. So we'll see what happens.
Sure. I mean, he's 10 years older, Aiden O'Connell. What are we doing here? Sorry.
All right. I'm going to talk about RJ Harvey in his year two. And, for some of us last year who were high on RJ Harvey, especially after the landing spot, I think that really inflated his draft capital as far as fantasy goes. I think, I had him steamed up before the draft, but him going to the Broncos where he did, I think might have pigeonholed me into believing he was something he wasn't, especially in Sean Payton offense. So let's talk about this running back year 2 hype. It can be dangerous and fast, and I'm pumping the brakes hard here on RJ Harvey in Denver because Sean Payton's track record, it screams committee, and the Broncos just, got J.K. Dobbins in again, and Harvey had a decent rookie volume, scored 12 touchdowns, leading the team, but the efficiency, it was ugly from, the jump street to the snaps, never got anywhere close to that bell cow territory. Peyton loves to rotate his backs, keeping everybody fresh and avoiding overworking one guy. We saw it all last year, and Harvey playing just 42% of the offensive snaps despite the TDs. Adds in, some of that offensive line questions, the coaching staff that refuses to hand the keys off to one back. And I feel like this is the same story every week. Touches without explosion and a backfield that stayed messy, and it's going to stay messy throughout this year. I think they're going to progress, and I think they want to have two guys, and I just don't think that RJ Harvey, unless another injury happens to J.K. Dobbins, which is probably likely, is going to be a guy that's going to be overpriced for me, especially in redraft here this season because of the scarcity at running back, and I just like the J.K. Dobbins value over RJ Harvey and the demise here. So what's your thoughts here, bigz? Do you like the Harvey year 2 surge?
I don't. And again, it's the J.K. Dobbins debacle. The fact that they sent a message saying that they were going to continue with the committee backfield, not give the keys to R.J. Harvey. And what's puzzling is that after the bye week last year, Harvey finished as RB2, 4, 27, 11, 11. He had 13, 17, 19 carries, 14 and 15 to finish the season. He had 5 of his 7 rushing touchdowns in weeks 13, 14, and 15 and 16. So if anything, he indicated in the second half of the year last year that he could be the dude, but they still kept his carries under 20 per game, which is not ideal. That number probably isn't going to get any higher. Most of his receiving touchdowns came in the first half of the season, so his usage did totally change. The goal line work came in the second half of the season, but his explosive plays where he took receptions to the house, that all came early. So there were so many indicators that he could be the guy. Now, if Dobbins gets hurt, you're going to want to have him stashed. So don't pay the full price for him. But if he does slip to you, say you already have two RBs, he's going to be your RB3. I think that's a very safe spot for him to be.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I think so too. All right, bigz, let's get into some spotlight wide receivers here. And
my spotlight wide receiver hails from the Brian Hartline tube of creating NFL wide receivers, Ohio State University. He's on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, going into a sophomore season, being drafted high as a rookie, and Mike Evans moving on to San Francisco. Emeka Egbuka is going to see a much, much better year than he did last year. Now, there was a lot of controversy with Egbuka because in the early part of the season, he had some pretty big games. Finished as wide receiver 4 in the first game of the season, wide receiver 11 in week 4, wide receiver 1 again, or wide receiver 1 in week 5, wide receiver 3 in week 10, and then his production started to fall off. He wasn't earning the targets that he had been to start the season, and he was pretty limited. He's another year older. I don't see that happening again. I see him being the focal point of that offense in the receiving game simply because of how the hierarchy works. And he's going to have a much bigger year than he did last year.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I've got him everywhere. I think this is, I think a lot of his slump last year near the end of the year was basically due to injuries based off of Baker Mayfield being injured for a lot of the year, but also Emeka Egbuka recovering from that hammy. And that thing, it's hard to recover from soft tissue injuries earlier in the season. They tend to push guys back a bit sooner. And I think that's exactly what happened to both Baker Mayfield and Emeka Egbuka. And I think this year is going to be a progression year for this Bucks team. I think this is a year of the youth for them. Give me some Jalen McMillan. Give me some Emeka Egbuka, and I think that progression here in 2026 is going to be what we want to see from this team. And yeah, they're going younger, and I really like this year two breakout from Emeka. I think he might have a steady flow of what we saw to start last year with. Especially without Mike Evans in the lineup, because I think that brings a lot of red zone opportunities to Emeka. I think he's better in the red zone than anybody else outside of Sean Tucker, and I think they value his value there. So give me Emeka, the power slot. I think he can work the outside as well. This is going to be a really, really good situation here for the Bucks and Emeka Egbuka year two.
Yeah, last year, even dealing with injury issues, he had 127 targets. With Mike Evans gone, it wouldn't be unrealistic to bump that up to 150 this year. 1,200 yards, I can see easily, double-digit touchdowns. So, yeah, I think he's going to have a really big year.
I love it. You know who else is going to have another really big year? Another sophomore wide receiver, and it's my player to go with. And let's talk about my spotlight. And, one of the big reasons is why we're spotlighting these wide receivers here, bigz, for year two is because they tend to break out the most at that position. It happens the most often, and I'm pounding the table for Luther Burden to take a monster step forward in Chicago under Ben Johnson. As a rookie, he was basically the third option behind Rome Odunze and DJ Moore, yet still flash serious yak juice, big playability on limited targets now with DJ Moore fully gone, a year of chemistry with Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson, the same guy who turned Amon-Ra St. Brown into that slot motion superstar in Detroit, calling the shots. Burden is stepping into the exact role that I want to see, that creates fantasy monsters week in and week out. He's got the skill set and it's tailor-made for it. He wasn't asked to carry the load as a rookie, but he produced like a high upside piece every time he touched the ball. Once Johnson starts scheming him in like he did at the latter half of the season, the same way he did to Amon-Ra St. Brown, pre-snap, slot alignment, manufactured touches, we're looking at a legitimate wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 spike week ceilings. This is a sophomore surge profile that wins fantasy championships. And I'm here to tell you right now, get yourself some Luther Burden if you can. His price is going to inflate probably as this offseason goes on, as the steam train continues to grow. But I love what I saw. It's not a flash in the pan rookie. Ben Johnson is about to turn him into the next Amon-Ra St. Brown right in the slot. What do you think about that there, bigz?
I think that's a bold call, and it's definitely going to be on our bold call show. I mean, we know that Luther Burden is a pretty special prospect, and we also know that Amon-Ra St. Brown is a pretty special player. He kind of came out of nowhere, and blew minds. Luther Burden kind of disappointed a little bit in his rookie season. So kind of like with the Brock Bowers, Colston Loveland thing, seeing like those roles flip-flop from an early breakout and then kind of leveling off to somebody who was kind of disappointing and then blows up. I see a huge future for Luther Burden, and I think it starts in 2026.
Yeah, it's a bold call, but sometimes, you and I, we tend to be ahead of the curve with those bold calls, and we've been a little bit more confident in those calls as of late because, if we're not, they don't end up, we keep them under wraps, and we gotta let them out, right? And sometimes we're wrong because it happens, but when we're right,
wrong. We're never wrong. We're just early or late.
Early, yeah. But I mean, if we don't make those bold calls, we're not leading our viewers to guys like Jackson Dart, right?
Yeah.
Guys we mentioned in this segment earlier because of our scouting and how we process our rookies. So, man, I think our viewers got a lot out of this show. I think this year two breakout is for real. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen here with some of these guys. There's more to talk about. Schulte had a couple bangers in there that I would like to have, heard his, assessment on, like a Trey Harris, like Bashel Tutin, who potentially, I think Schulte's got him as a slump. Because I think that he really values Chris Rodriguez and what he brings to the running game. But we'll have to pick his brain on the next episode here, Biggs. But take us home, man. Take us home. What's going on the network? What do we got going down the pipeline? It's Dynasty going on right now. We got a huge show popping tomorrow. But tell everybody what's going on.
Yeah, so like, subscribe, hit the bell. I want to say Guten Tag or Guten Abend to our German viewers, and G'day mate to our Australian viewers, and Oi to our UK viewers, and take off you hosers to our Canadian viewers. Like, subscribe, hit the bell. Get notified whenever we pop a new show. Fantasy Forecast drops Friday mornings. Dynasty Pulse drops Saturday mornings. That's our off-season content. We got the rookie guide. Go to FSAN.com and go cop that because it's very, very valuable, especially if you're playing in Dynasty leagues. If you've never played Dynasty, drop in the comments that you want to play Dynasty. We'll put together 3 tiers of leagues for startup drafts over the summer. You can play the novice, where nobody's ever played Dynasty before, and we'll kind of run the league and shepherd you through it. Intermediate leagues, if you've played and you love it, then come in. There'll be a buy-in, big prizes, all that stuff, and then you can beat the experts. If you think you can take on the Dynasty Pulse crew, we'll put together a league. You can come after us and see if you can beat us. Had a lot of fun with the Jersey leagues. Those are going to be popping again. And lots of stuff at FSAN. We're just growing and growing. Our app is coming out. Follow me on Blue Sky at Big Boned. And other than that, we hope you win.
Yeah, folks. Big said it best. We hope you win. Peace out. We'll see you next time.
We've all been there. Watching a can't-miss rookie bust while your rival scoops up the next superstar on waivers. The 2026 class is deep, talented, and full of landmines. Do you know who's actually worth the 101? Stop guessing, start scouting. The Fantasy Sports Advice Network 2026 Rookie Prospect Guide is your blueprint for a dynasty. The experts from the Fantasy Forecast, the Devi Dojo, the Dynasty Pulse have logged the hours so you don't have to. From advanced analytical models to raw film grading, we give you the data that translates to Sunday points. Don't just participate in your draft. Dominate it. Download the 2026 guide at FSAN.com today. Your championship starts here.